Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're time traveling to one of the most transformative periods in human history, the Neolithic Age, also known as the New Stone Age, running roughly from 10,000 BCE to about 3,500 BCE. This wasn't just about new stones. It was the era that gave birth to civilization as we know it. This is the age of the farmer, the birth of the village, and the blueprint for our modern world. So, how did our hunter-gatherer ancestors go from constantly chasing their next meal to building the foundations of society? Let's dig in. The entire Neolithic period is defined by one massive event, the Neolithic Revolution. This was arguably the most profound and rapid transformation in our history since we first learned to control fire. It completely rewired how humans lived, ate, and interacted with each other. At its core, the revolution was about a fundamental shift in our relationship with food. For hundreds of thousands of years, we were food gatherers. We were hunters, foragers, moving with the seasons, following herds, and relying on what nature provided. But during the Neolithic, we became food producers. We became farmers. This change didn't happen overnight, and it happened independently in different parts of the world. But the results were the same. In the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, people started intentionally planting and cultivating wild grasses, selectively breeding them over generations to create the wheat and barley we recognize today. In Asia, communities began cultivating rice along river valleys. In the Americas, maize or corn was domesticated from a wild grass called teosinte. This was a game changer. For the first time, we had a degree of control over our food supply. Alongside plants, we also began domesticating animals. It likely started with taming wild animals that were less aggressive or more useful. Goats and sheep were among the first, providing a steady source of meat, milk, and wool. Pigs and cattle followed. These animals weren't just for food. They became our partners. Oxen could be used to plow fields, providing far more power than any human could. This wasn't just taming. It was selective breeding. We chose the most docile sheep, the cows that produced the most milk, creating new breeds that were perfectly suited to life alongside humans. This synergy between domesticated plants and animals created a reliable, predictable food source that would change everything. One of the most immediate consequences of farming was the need to stay put. As hunter-gatherers, we were nomadic. But once you've spent months tending to a field of wheat, you can't just pack up and leave. You have to stay to protect it, water it, and eventually harvest it. This led to the rise of permanent settlements, a lifestyle we call sedentism. People began building villages near their fields and water sources. Archaeologists have unearthed incredible examples of these early settlements. Jericho in the modern-day West Bank is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. By around 8000 BCE, it was a thriving town surrounded by a massive stone wall and a tower, suggesting a need for defense and a high degree of social organization. Another famous site is Catalyük in modern-day Turkey. This was a massive city-like settlement where people lived in tightly packed mud brick houses. What's fascinating is that they entered their homes through ladders from the roof, and the town had no streets. It was like a human honeycomb. These weren't just temporary camps. They were permanent homes, the very first towns and cities on Earth. To support this new agricultural lifestyle, our technology had to evolve. The Paleolithic or Old Stone Age was defined by chipped stone tools. They were effective for hunting, but not so much for felling trees to clear land or tilling soil. So in the Neolithic, we see a shift to polished and ground stone tools. People would carefully grind stones like the salt or jadeite against sand and water to create incredibly sharp, durable edges. The stone axe became a powerful tool for carpentry and clearing forests. Stone hoes and sickles were developed for farming. These polished tools were a significant upgrade, making agricultural work far more efficient. But perhaps the most iconic invention of the Neolithic Age is pottery. Before pottery, storing things was a major challenge. You could use animal hides or woven baskets, but they weren't great for storing grains long-term pests could get in, and they couldn't hold water. The invention of pottery or ceramics was revolutionary. By firing clay at high temperatures, people could create hard waterproof vessels. Pots were perfect for storing surplus grain, keeping it safe from moisture and rodents. They could be used for cooking, allowing people to make stews and porridges, which expanded their diet. And of course, they were essential for carrying and storing water. Pottery is one of the key hallmarks of a Neolithic site. It's the Tupperware of the ancient world, and it was absolutely essential for the farming lifestyle. This combination of agriculture, permanent settlements, and new technologies had a ripple effect that reshaped society itself. For the first time in human history, we could produce a food surplus. This means that farmers could grow more food than their immediate family needed to survive. A food surplus is the engine of civilization. Why? Because if you have extra food, not everyone has to be a farmer. This led to a division of labor and craft specialization. Some people could now dedicate their entire lives to becoming really good at one thing. You could have a full-time potter who traded their pots for grain. You could have a toolmaker who specialized in creating the best stone axes. We see the emergence of weavers, builders, and maybe even early priests or leaders. This specialization made society more complex and more efficient. It also meant people started to accumulate wealth. If you had more land, more animals, or more stored grain, you were wealthier than your neighbor. This was the beginning of social and economic complexity. The ownership of land and surplus goods started to create distinct social classes, a departure from the more egalitarian hunter-gatherer societies. This newfound complexity and stability also allowed for a flourishing of culture and the construction of incredible structures. We're not just talking about houses. In the Neolithic, we see the rise of monumental architecture. Think of the massive stone circles like Stonehenge in England, which began construction in the late Neolithic. These required immense cooperation, planning, and a shared set of beliefs to build. Even earlier, we have sites like Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Dating back to around 9600 BCE, it features massive, elaborately carved T-shaped stone pillars. What is mind-blowing is that Göbekli Tepe appears to have been built by hunter-gatherers on the cusp of the agricultural revolution, suggesting that complex religion and social organization might have been a catalyst for settling down, not just a result of it. These were likely the world's first temples, places for ritual and community gathering. So, when did the Neolithic Age end? Like its beginning, its end happened at different times and different places. There wasn't a sudden cataclysm. Instead, it was a slow transition defined by the discovery of a new game-changing material, metal. The age of stone gave way to the age of metal. The first metal to be widely used was copper. People discovered that you could heat certain rocks or ores to extract this shiny, malleable material. This kicked off a transitional period known as the Chalcolithic, or the Copper Age. Copper was better than stone for some things. It could be melted and cast into complex shapes, but it was also soft. The real revolution came when someone discovered that by mixing copper with another metal, like tin, you could create a much harder and more durable alloy, bronze. This discovery marked the end of the Neolithic and the beginning of the Bronze Age, an era of powerful empires, writing, and even more complex cities. The Neolithic Age was truly the foundation of our world. The decision to plant a seed was a small act with colossal consequences. It led to villages, cities, pottery, new technologies, social hierarchies, and the very concept of civilization. Every time you eat a piece of bread, live in a house, or work a specialized job, you are living out the legacy of our Neolithic ancestors. They were the original pioneers who traded a life of wandering for a future of building, creating the world we inhabit today. Thanks so much for watching. It's incredible to think about how these changes from thousands of years ago still shape our lives. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the new Stone Age, please hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into our ancient past. Let me know in the comments what part of the Neolithic you find most fascinating. See you next time.